What up, guys? So today we're going to talk about narrative investing and some of the things that I'm actually going to be doing right now to help me with this new style of investing. Um, I think one of the interesting things to go over is the fact that in each stage of crypto, there's been a different way that you were most optimally investing. So in the early days, it was basically anything that got added to Bitcoin talk. And then after that, and there was like, five or six or seven cryptos. This was 2012, 2013. Then you had the sort of the anything that gets added to coin market cap hack, where you could find out what was going to get added to coin market cap. And then those usually popped off. And then we had the Coinbase thing. So anything that got added to Coinbase was probably going up. And then we had a whole ICO phase in around 2017. And now there's so many projects that are going on that I think the phase we're in now is the narrative phase. So it's not really based on technology. It's more about what everyone's talking about. And so I would say the last 6 months, it was NFTs and sort of these rebasing ohm forks being the most interesting new technology, the hot thing on the block. And now it's important to know how you're going to shift your portfolio. And so one of the things that I'm doing is I got this notebook, this ledger, where the philosophy is basically like it's a lot easier to buy cryptos than it is to sell them. And so that's the difficult part is when are you supposed to sell a position? Maybe you're up a little bit, maybe you're down a little bit or down a lot. Should you, let's say you invested 40K into something and now it's worth 20. Do you just wait until it goes back up, or do you take that money, take the loss, put it into the next narrative and see if you can make your money there? So what's the best way? And so what I'm personally doing is I'm going to write a ledger, and you always have to have a thesis when you're investing. And so what I'm investing in, let's say Polkadot, I forget why I invested in it, why I was like, oh, this is a really good idea right now. And then you look back at your portfolio, it's been 6 months, it's been a year, maybe you've made a little bit of money. Let's say I put $10,000 into Polkadot and now it's worth $25,000. So, and at the peak, it was worth $50,000. So now I'm on paper, I'm up, I'm down from the all-time high. And so the question is, should I stay in Polkadot, or is there a more relevant thesis that I want to invest in now, take that money and go put it into a new project like, let's say, Near or some of the other Zk Rollup L1s and L2s like Metis and Rose that are coming out that are getting a lot of attention from crypto Twitter, let's say, on Discord and in the industry. So that's the big question. And so what I'm doing is I'm going to be writing down all of the theses that I have for my investments. And so that 6 months later, when I forget, let's say a good recent one is investing in Saber and Sunny on Solana. And they have sort of a parallel with the curve wars that are going on. And so I thought that was a good investment, and it's turning out to be pretty good. But the question is, let's say I get a new idea in 6 weeks, in a month, in however long. Do I want to take my money out of Saber? Do I want to give it more time for that thesis to become true? Or is that thesis done and I want to reallocate my money, whether I'm up or down? And so one of the things I did was I sold my Polkadot. I think it's a good project, but if we're going to look at this, oh, cool, we have Polkadot here. Well, we have Polkadot. It's at well, we're not going to compare it to that. We're going to compare it to, let's say, Solana. So at best, at a best case scenario, I'm looking at maybe a 59% gain, whereas something like Metis being compared to, let's say, a Polygon is probably a good thing. There's a 25x there. So should I wait and see if Polkadot is going to go back to its all-time highs, let's say go from 25 billion to 50 billion, and in which case I have a best case scenario of a 2x? Or is it more interesting for me to take my money and put it into a token like Metis, where there's a lot more upside. There's a 25x if it just can match Polygon, which would be considered one of its competitors as an L2 on top of Ethereum. So I think that's what's really important now with narrative investing. And this is like a new thing for me, is not necessarily pushing so hard on the technology, where a lot of these projects, 99% of things don't work out, right? But what's happening now is people are just reading the headlines. They're just reading that something is a ZK rollup, and people are putting their money into it, and it's going up. And so I have to sort of play that game alongside everyone else. As much as I would like to only invest in things that I believe in from a technology standpoint, a lot of times it's more the marketing standpoint, the marketing mixed with technology, and if that technology is the flavor of the week. And when that thesis is over, when ZK rollups have had their day and they're no longer the hottest thing on the block, then I have to look at this little ledger and decide, is there a new narrative that is probably better to invest in? And so right now what we're seeing is a lot of ZK rollups, a lot of privacy things. So coins like Secret, privacy coin. You have Rose, which is Oasis Network, which is another privacy ZK rollup. This one's an L1 where the financial data, I think this is the thing that DeFi needs to go into its next evolution, is you need to be able to take social security numbers or bank statements and put that on the blockchain so that people can get, let's say, loans based on not just an over collateralized loan, but using your credit score or something like that. But you don't want that information public for everyone to see, but you do, as a lender, want to know who you're getting into business with. And so these things, Oasis, another one is Dust Network, working on a similar thing. Crypto's pretty much down across the board today. But if we're looking at narratives, then these are the projects that are working on that and will likely get a lot of the funds flowing into them, regardless of their stage or if they work or any of that stuff. What we're seeing is sort of like all the people flocking to certain projects that have a good title or that narrative around them, whether it's a ZK rollup or privacy, is, in my opinion, are the ones that are happening right now. The forks of Ohm are getting tested right now. Those are having their day in court, as they say, with Ohm reaching an all-time low today. Let's check that out. Ohm, Olympus DAO. So yeah, these are getting absolutely slaughtered, and so we'll see if they bounce back. I personally took a double down investment into Ohm just to see if I actually quadrupled my position with very little money, and because it was so low from when I got in. So I felt like, if I believe in the project, and I think Ohm is the safest of all of these. They sort of invented the whole Ponzi-ish thing going on with the treasuries, and so the rebasing DAOs, as we call them. And so, I doubled down on this, but I think the next narrative is starting to come out when we have this next rally. Gaming was a huge one. Gaming in Metaverse was, I think, probably the big narrative in this last cycle. But you have to choose what lane you're going to look into and research, because there's a lot of projects coming out. I personally don't do the gaming coins just because I don't know that industry. I'm not tapped into those people on Twitter and those projects. There's a lot of games, and for me, the way I invest is I use the product, and a lot of these games aren't out yet, and they have $550 million market caps, which I just can't do that. I've played around with Decentraland. Personally, it's not fun. There's nobody on there really playing anything. So for me to make an investment in that, it's really hard. But that's where the narrative is. So sometimes you just have to follow that around. So I suggest everyone get a little notebook, write down the reasons why you're putting in money into these projects, what the thesis is, because as I said, buying is easy, selling is very hard. And so you need a reason to reallocate. You always have to be asking yourself, if I had my money out of this project, let's say I had $20,000 instead of Polkadot, would I put it back into Polkadot actively, or am I just staying in that investment because it was higher at one point? And if that's the case, then you got to get out of that investment and reshift your thesis. If your thesis is done, you're saying, hey, I think in October so-and-so is going to happen, and in October that thing does or doesn't happen and the price does or doesn't move, you shouldn't just stick with it. You should really evaluate if that thesis is broken and if you should take that money out and put it into something else, or if you need to leave it in to marinate a little bit longer. And maybe you're off on timing. A lot of times you're just off on timing, but sometimes you think X, Y, and Z is going to happen or is going to be the most talked about thing, and it turns out it's not. And so you have to decide where you want to have your money. And so that's just my little tip for what I'm doing personally with my portfolio, is going through a lot of these coins and seeing if the thesis still stands. I didn't have that ledger going. I was sort of using everything in my head, but I realized that I forgot my logic behind investing in Polkadot. And there was a time when it was the talk of the town, and they're coming out with all these parachains and stuff like that. And now I really don't see anything going on in terms of Polkadot in my feeds. Whenever people are talking about the L1s, it's AVAX, it's Solana, it's some of the Zk Rollup L2 chains on Ethereum, but I don't really see Polkadot in the equation. And maybe that means they're building. But if we're working on a narrative thesis right now, the main thesis being narrative investing is this section, then my money is probably better off somewhere else. That's more the talk of the town, because whatever's the talk is seemingly what's going up and pumping, versus the other things that might be good projects. I think Polkadot's technology-wise is a very interesting project and how they've structured everything, but that doesn't necessarily, you have to sort of separate the technologist from like the investor and what's going to make money today now. Because if I can go make money, maybe I can go put more money back into Polkadot when the time comes, when it's more mature or more talked about with people. But right now, it doesn't make sense to chase a 2x gain. Maybe I should I did take out my money, and I'm going to reallocate it to something else that's a little bit more of the moment. Thanks for watching, guys.